everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I'm Amma Mama. Thanks for stopping by. I'm doing my July wrap up. I feel like I talked about these books in quite a bit of detail like in other videos, so I'm trying to not be too repetitive with them, but I do want to go over what I read. I'm going to start with the two that I either, one of them I read on my Kindle app, and then one of them I actually listened to through Audible. So I wanted to do those ones first. So the first book is Before and After by C.P. Cabanis. And this book was just really cute. It's a romance. It's kind of set around the holidays. You're following the main character. She kind of settled for a job that wasn't really what she wanted to do. She really wanted to write, and she ended up taking an office job and kind of giving up her dream of like traveling and stuff like that. And I don't want to give away too much of like how she ended up where she was, because I feel like that has a lot to do with kind of the plot. But in the choices that she made and some things that had happened, she left someone kind of in her past, and she runs into him at the airport. She runs into him at the airport after their flights are delayed, and they start talking again, and then he finds out that she lives in, sorry, my dog's like growling at something. Anyway, she finds out that he is going to be doing a job. He's a photographer doing a job in the town that she lives in, and some stuff happens, but they kind of start getting back to their original friendship, which had kind of left off with the possibility of romance. And so I don't want to say a whole lot about it, but it was a really cute book. It was a quick read. It's not that long. Not super in depth with a lot of the stuff, but I feel like that kind of helped because it flowed so nicely and it read so quickly. Like, it was just a fun little read, and it made me feel like I was kind of reading a Hallmark Christmas type movie, but it wasn't so over the top. Okay, this kitty wanted to pop in and say hi. That's what my dog keeps growling at, so I keep having to stop what I'm doing. Anyways, but so it was done in a way that it didn't feel like over the top and make you, get sick of reading it. I really liked it. And so Val, who's the main character, she also has a friend who also goes by Val. And so there's another book, that I think technically is after this one. I just started reading it, but it follows the other Val and her story, and that one's called I Said Love, I think is what it is. I didn't write it down, but I think it's either I Said Love or I've Said Love, but that one also seems like it's going to be maybe set around the holidays and stuff like that. And so far what I've read, that one also is looking cute. So I would definitely recommend reading that. It was a quick read. It was kind of refreshing in the middle of the other stuff I had been reading for the month, and so I really enjoyed that. Then I listened to a story called Maybe This Time by Cara Bastone, I think it is. And that one was just really, really fun. It was like an Audible exclusive, I think. And so they had, actors, and they had sound effects and just all the things. The storyline itself, if you let yourself get too caught up in it, it is a little bit goofy because the main person, like, she gets caught in a wormhole and she gets shot ahead like 80 years in the future, and she's stuck there for 5 years. And then suddenly her cell phone starts working, but it will only call this one person, Mike, who she calls Mikey, but he was another teacher at the school she worked at. And so they're trying to stop the present her from going through the wormhole. So there's a lot of stuff, but it was a really fun one to listen to. And so it was just highly entertaining, like while I was driving or cleaning or whatever it was that I was doing at the time, to be able to listen to that. So that's another one that I would definitely recommend. Both of those ones were just really light, really just kind of sweet, very wholesome, not a lot of explicitness to them. So they were really good. So I would definitely recommend them. Then the next one, these are all like my physical books that I had. Then I had Out to Canaan by Jan Karon. And this one I did listen to the audio version. I had mentioned in the video when I talked about this one. Again, another just kind of really light, really wholesome. You're following Father Tim and his wife, and the drama is that somebody's trying to buy property who they don't want to buy the property, and the bakery, I think it is, might be closing. Something might be closing because of this. But anyways, I want to say fun. It's not even so much that it's fun, but it's just a very calm, wholesome kind of read. And so I find that at least this series, it's the only thing I've ever read by Jan Karon is the Mitford series. And what I like about them is, like, even if I'm having a time where like my anxiety is really high, the way they're written, they're kind of calming somehow. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but because of how they're written, a lot of times I find that I can read these even if I'm having a hard time focusing on other stuff. So I would definitely recommend this. Then I read Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan. And this book, I would recommend it, not as highly as some of the other stuff that I read this month, but it was pretty good. I wanted to like it a lot more than what I did, and that's not to say that it was bad, but there were parts of it that, like, I don't know, there were parts of it that felt a little rushed, but then there was other stuff that I felt like the characters were almost like, I don't know, drawn out too much. I don't know. The more I read it, it was one that I found that I kept putting it down, and then, I'd pick it back up and I'd read a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I think I can read a little bit more. But basically, Mira is a half siren, and she is a captain of the border guard, but people who have magic or who are water or fathom folk, they're very much looked down upon by a lot of the humans, not all of them. And so it is a story of like discrimination and kind of how that plays out. But there's also like the rebellion. And so Mira is not part of that, but you're kind of getting this view of like how she, as a person who is in this authority figure, along with her live-in partner, he also is an authority figure, but they're still fathom folk. And so as much as they try to do like within the system, there's still a lot of stuff. And I will say I did kind of like the ending. Something happens that did make me kind of tear up a little bit. But I also was kind of hoping for something more. Anyway, so I would recommend it, but it certainly wasn't like my favorite that I read this month. Then I read Stephen King, The Green Mile. This one I would highly, highly recommend. It was so good. You are following this prison guard, Paul Edgecombe, and then there's John Coffey, who is on death row. He had been accused of raping and murdering 2 young girls. And I don't want to say a whole lot more than that, but things are not necessarily what they seem to be. Sorry, someone rang my doorbell. I've completely forgotten what the last thing was that I was talking about. So I'll just say some stuff and then hopefully I'm not repeating too much, but things are not necessarily what they seem to be, and that's all I really want to say about it, because I feel like if I say too much of anything, it'll give away a lot of the parts of the book that really add to the book with the different like twists and things that you learn as you're going throughout the story. Even till the very end, there was some stuff that happened that I was like, oh, I actually had not seen that coming. So it was a really good read. I saw that on the back of this, originally this had been published in six different volumes, and one came out each month for 6 months. And so this is all of them in one volume. And it's not like a super, I mean, it's a long book, but it wasn't a long read. Like I just read it in 6 days. I kind of just read it one volume each day to kind of, I don't know, I think I just wanted to get that feel of like how it had originally come out, where you had to wait for the next installment, I guess. But I really liked this, so I would definitely recommend The Green Mile. I think I'd mentioned I saw the movie a long time ago, but I didn't remember a lot of it. Like I just kind of remember, I don't remember his name, but I remember the actor who played the character of John Coffey. And I remembered vaguely about what he was accused of doing, like that sort of thing, but I didn't really remember a lot of the movie. So definitely recommended that, or would recommend that. Then I also read Bag of Bones by Stephen King. This is another one that I would highly recommend. It's a pretty big, hefty book. It's really good. There is a guy, I'm really bad with names. If you haven't noticed, I'm always forgetting the names of people. Oh, his name is also Mike. So Mike is an author, and his wife dies very unexpectedly of natural causes, but very unexpected. And well, I mean, obviously a lot of times natural causes are unexpected, but they were young. And so after she passes away, he finds out that she was also 6 weeks pregnant, and he had no idea. And so as he's starting to try to unravel that mystery, he also develops like writer's block and some other stuff. And so he finally decides to go to their vacation home that they had to try to write. And while he's there, he meets, I forgot her name. What is her name? I don't remember her name, but he meets a young mother who is in basically like a all-out custody battle with her daughter's grandfather, because her husband, which is the grandfather's son, has also died. And there's a lot more to it, and some of it's on the book like jacket, so I'm not really giving anything away, but there is like a ghost story kind of element to this as well. But it wasn't it's not what you would think was a typical kind of haunting ghost story thing. It was just really good. I liked this so much. I would definitely recommend it. I feel like I'm doing a horrible job of selling it, but between his wife, who is deceased, that might give you a little bit of a hint. Then this girl, the custody battle, the town they're living in, there's some historical things that are coming into play, again, along with like this haunting. And so like there's all these interconnected events that I feel like if I say too much, you kind of lose some of the fun from the story, because it's just kind of neat to see them as you're, to find them as you're reading. So it was really good. I will say this was another one that that Stephen King put something in it. I feel like I can't even really tell you exactly what it is. Anyway, so there's a lot of, oh no, I remember what I was saying. I got interrupted again. But there's something towards the end of the book that I don't want to say what it was, because I don't want to ruin any part of the story. But it's another thing where Stephen King references something that goes along with some of his other writings. But what I thought was really interesting is that this book was, it came out, the copyright is 1998, which I think is a long time before the story that is cross-referenced in a way was even written yet. I think like 10 years before almost. If I have my dates correctly, which I might not, because I'm also bad with dates. I might be a little off on that. But I just thought it was really interesting because it got me thinking, like, how, like, how do his ideas get interconnected to the point where, like, he might say one small thing in a book and then 10 years later he's got an entire story about it. So like I said, I feel like I can't even say what that was, because it would maybe ruin part of the book because it would give away too much. But it was really good. It says on the back cover, a haunted love story. So again, I'm not really saying too much with the fact that his wife is deceased as well, but it was a really good book. I enjoyed reading this. Then I also read another Stephen King book. I read If It Bleeds by Stephen King. This one, I had originally, for some reason, I had thought that this was strictly a book, because the book The Outsiders, one of the main characters is Holly, I forgot her last name, Holly somebody. But anyways, Holly is the person who starts hunting for and kind of realizing that there's this outsider and stuff like that. So I thought that If It Bleeds was only another book including Holly and another like outsider story. What it actually was a book of short stories, and there's 4 of them in here. I guess they're more like novellas though, because they're not like short stories. They're all longer books, but they were all so good. So the first one in here, Mr. Harrigan's Phone. And again, I won't say a whole lot on this just because, but an old man like passes away. The boy who has been reading to him buries a phone with him. But there's a reference in that story that's kind of like a reference to The Stand with something that's in there. So that was really fun. Then there's another story, The Life of Chuck. And again, that one I really can't say a whole lot, except that suddenly people are seeing all over the place, like, they're like posters and signs and things like that are like, happy retirement, Chuck. It's been a great 39 years. And everybody's like, who is Chuck? Like, we don't know who that is. But again, I don't want to say much more than that, because you really need to not know who Chuck is to really enjoy that story, I think. And then the story If It Bleeds, that one is the one that includes Holly and another outsider kind of situation. And again, I'm not gonna say anything else on that. And then the last story in here is one called Rat, about a writer who gets, at first it seems like he's getting writer's block, but he's actually kind of getting overloaded with words and not knowing what to choose. So he's having like this overwhelm of words and not knowing what to choose. And so it kind of messes with his writing. But they were all really, really good. I enjoyed this a lot. I mean, they're short stories or novellas, but even so, for me, because I liked them so much, I still ended up giving this book a 5 stars because it was just so fun. So I would highly recommend this as well. Even if you're not someone who normally reads short story, novella kind of things, it was definitely worth it. I think If It Bleeds was probably the longest one in here. But I mean, you know, you can kind of tell it's still a really hefty book, but it was a lot of fun. And this one was published in 2020, so it was newer also. And then the last one that I read in July was the first book in the Souls trilogy, Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoe. And I kind of had mixed feelings on this one. Basically, in this particular book, you're following Leon and Ray. Leon is a demon. Ray is a girl who basically like a cult, kind of. They are wanting to sacrifice her to this like lesser god that they are trying to bring back to kind of rule the earth, and I don't know what else, but they want to bring this god back. And so they need to sacrifice some souls, and it's got to do with something that happened in a mine like 6 generations beforehand or something, requiring sacrifices to basically like pay back this god for letting some people survive. And so this demon Leon kind of becomes obsessed with her and wants her soul, which she does not want to give him her soul. But there's kind of the struggle of like, is that the only way she's going to stay alive? And so it's her trying to not be sacrificed, along with him wanting her soul, but he's also in love with her. So the things I will say, there is a lot of very graphic sex in this book, and that isn't even the part. I mean, if you don't like reading that stuff at all, I definitely would not recommend the book just because of that. For me, it's kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes, like if I'm reading like a lighthearted, happy kind of romance, and then suddenly it's got like this very graphic, like sex scenes in them, that usually loses the book for me. I don't like it. I skip those scenes, whatever. If, however, I'm reading, you know, maybe like a fantasy book, and the way that it's written, it fits well with the story, then it's fine. It doesn't bother me. Like when I read like Iron Flame, that has a lot of like graphic scenes in it, but it wasn't so much that it bothered me, and because of the way the story was, it seemed to fit, so it was fine. This book definitely was like borderline, I don't know, for me it felt like borderline, almost like softcore porn kind of thing. So that was kind of hard. It wasn't enough that it made me stop reading it, just because the storyline itself was okay. Like I liked the plot, and I did want to find out what happened to the characters, but it's labeled as a dark romance, which makes sense. I understand now that I've read it. I didn't know what a dark romance was, so I do understand that part of it. However, because it was so gratuitous and there was so much of it, I felt like every time I'd start to kind of get into the plot again, then suddenly there was another sex scene, and then you'd read a few more pages, and then like the people are going at it again, and in some ways you're like, okay, this demon and this girl, like how is anything happening, and like where are they solving the problem? The other problem with it is that the way they are together and stuff, you kind of don't get any inclination as to how or why they've fallen in love, because really the only thing that you ever seem to see them doing are either going at it or fighting people who are trying to kill her or other things like that. So I didn't hate it, but it certainly wasn't like my favorite. I am, however, now invested enough in like the overall story, because they introduced all the people who are in the next 2 books, and I've heard that the second one is actually better than this one. And so I just started reading Her Soul for Revenge, and that's the one that I actually won as a Goodreads giveaway. And so I need to read it anyways, but I'll probably still read the last one. I don't know if I will buy it simply because I own these ones, or if I'll just, you know, try to get a copy of it from the library. I think it's called Soul of a Witch. So I will probably read that one too, just to kind of see how it all turns out, because like I said, there is enough plot to it that part of it was kind of interesting, and I was enjoying that. But so this one I'm kind of on the fence. So if you don't like a lot of, you know, like very spicy, over the top stuff, definitely find, I don't know if they're in the book. I never remember to like look for trigger warnings on books. I just kind of start reading and hope for the best. So I don't know if they like have them somewhere or if you can Google them, but I would definitely check, because it definitely, I know why it's a dark romance. So there is a lot of stuff. So if you don't like that, I would not necessarily recommend it. Even if you aren't a fan of that, but you can handle it to get to the story stuff, it's okay. It was fine. Not my favorite read, but it was fine. That is everything that I read for July. I've started reading some of my stuff for August, and I'm still working on my short stories for Mark Twain and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And so, but those I should be able to finish in August. I'm almost done with Twain for sure. And then I'm like halfway through the Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So that is all for this month for my wrap up. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.